the quick summary points, it would be 4 steps. So step 1 is find your why. You need to know why you're doing this and what you want to get out of it. Number 2 is your profile optimization, thinking Ronsil all the way, exactly what it does on the tin. Number 3 is growing and engaging your network with a strategy that meets your why. Otherwise, it's just random. And number 4 is showing who you are and the value that you have via content.
Hi, EnvisionAirs. Welcome to the EnvisionAir Podcast. If you're new here, I'm Nicole Ningyuan and I'm your host. And this is your go-to self-development podcast where we envision living our best lives, ones filled with unlimited possibilities, by exploring everyday topics related to health, wealth, community, and love. And if you're not new and you are returning, a very warm welcome back, EnvisionAir. I am so glad that you decided to come back today and take some time out of your day to learn, grow, and hang out with me. So thank you. This podcast is for information purposes only and should not be considered to be medical, legal, tax, financial, or other professional advice.
This podcast does not encourage or endorse any illegal activity.
We are not responsible for any losses, damages, or liability that may arise from the information in this podcast.
The views explored in the podcast may not always be those of the host.
Today, we're going to be discussing how to build your brand online and why it's so important. To help us navigate this topic, which can be a little bit intimidating and or scary, we have a special guest joining us, Emma Bauer. Emma.
Hey, Nicole.
Hi, Emma. Welcome. Emma is the head of community at Heriot in-house legal recruitment, and she has over a decade of experience working with in-house legal counsel in the media, events, and awards space. She has a wealth of knowledge and experience working with legal in-house counsel, advising them on developing their personal brands, crafting compelling messaging, building authentic relationships, and establishing a strong professional presence. So a very warm welcome. Emma, thank you so much for being on the EnvisionAir podcast.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Nicole. I'm super excited.
Well, we're excited to have you and to be talking about this very important topic, which I think a lot of people tend to either, dismiss as not really important or like to bury their head in the sand and not really engage with it because it can be really scary. So let's start with what exactly is an online brand and why should we even care about building one?
Great question. I think I spent a lot of my career as my catchphrase was, don't wait until you need a network to build your network. And now it's very much don't wait until you need a personal brand to build your personal brand. And essentially, your personal brand is your network. They're one in the same. It's all sort of ties in together. It's how you're viewed, whether it's internally, externally, online, or offline. It's all the same thing, but it is very intangible and it's certainly not easy to define. And a lot of it comes down to serendipitous moments. I mean, the way that we met, for example, it is all just sometimes it's just pot luck and it turns into a really good relationship. But your online brand can actually help make those situations even easier. So I think it's really, really important. It can help you find a lot of fulfillment in what you do, whether that's on a professional side of things, sharing your knowledge, whether it's looking for a safe space to be able to ask the silly question, a term I hate, and a number one rule in our community that no question or idea is a silly one. But it boils down to sort of being able to be found and seen further and faster than you can ever actually manage to achieve in the offline world, which is, there's nothing wrong with it. I love conferences and awards. I ran them for 12 years. So they're amazing. We met at a networking event. They're amazing. What I'm saying is the importance of the online brand is actually something that can really support the offline brand and your network and just help you go a little bit further and also in a much more accessible way. I think if you think about conferences, starting before school pickup, starting after school pickup, dinners, breakfast briefings at 8 o'clock in the morning, the traditional golf days, members clubs that are usually quite male focused, I think utilizing your online brand, you can essentially speed up the way that you interact with your brand and your network, and essentially just make it a lot more accessible for primary caregivers. Usually that's women. And, from the comfort of your home, your office, your commute, and all you need is a laptop or a smartphone. And we're very fortunate that the majority of people that are watching us now, they have one or the other.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what I heard is that it is obviously a way that is much more accessible than traditional like networking routes, that you can connect with people to build possible opportunities, possible connections. And I think it would be really helpful. Maybe let's dive into some concrete examples that you can give in terms of how having an online presence can actually, what are some opportunities that can come from that?
Of course. I think the best example I can give, there's a really great general counsel that I know. Her name is Joanne Theodulu, and she's the general counsel of Simply Business, which is an insurance firm. Not the most sexy of industries, I know, but bear with me. And she was telling me once that her brand has helped her in many, many ways over the years. But this particular story was when it was a very candidate led market and she was hiring, and a candidate in question said to her, listen, I had several opportunities in front of me, and I actually looked at the general counsels. I wanted to know who I was going to be working for. And if you Google Joanne, you'll find out so much about her. You'll see she's featured in the press. She's a trustee of Mind. She speaks openly about mental health and well-being. And in a position of power as a lawyer, that is truly amazing, because there's so much work to do around mental health and well-being in the law. But also shortlisted for awards, making that candidate think, oh, this person talks about her team and the value that the team does, and puts them forward for renowned industry awards. And Joanne said, yeah, this candidate took the job with her because of Joanne and the personal brand that was easily attainable when she did the research. And I think that's something that's really quite interesting these days. We've always, whenever we've gone for a job, we've always researched the company, right? But
Mm.
now it's even more like researching the team dynamics and culture and values, and the manager's culture and values. Will I actually be able to be my authentic self at work, where I spend a lot of my time, and I don't want to have a mask on anymore? I want to be me and who I am. So I think that's one very good example, and one that I like to say. The other is probably me. I mean, I literally made up my job over lunch with my boss. I He knew exactly who I was. He could see what I was all about. He could see the relationships that I had. What's nice is he saw it both offline and online. And so I think, again, it's not to say that the offline element isn't important. It's just how you can utilize your online community or network or brand in order to make those in-person interactions even easier. I myself, I'm a horrendously nervous networker, like horrendously
Really?
nervous.
I would never have pegged that. No.
Yeah, there was a reason why I stood behind the registration desk for 12 years. It was my safety blanket. I knew I had invited everybody to every conference, so I knew exactly who was walking in the door. I knew exactly what kind of things that they liked to talk about. I'd be able to say, "Oh no, that person over there is looking a little bit lonely. Hey, let's go and get somebody," and like bring them into the fold. And it wasn't until I went to my first conference after leaving the industry as a delegate, just being like, I'm literally walking into a room not knowing what to do, what to say. And I had this horrible flashback of the first day of university, where I walked up to my friend Emily. She's a great friend of mine now, still to this day. But that awkward, hi, I'm Emma, and I'm reading history. And you think, oh, this is so cringe. Um, so before I did that conference, I actually reached out I utilized my online brand and network in order
Yeah.
to make that better and mitigate that feeling that I had of anxiety. So I did a LinkedIn poll. I sent LinkedIn messages. I sent emails out. I text people that I knew, and I said, this is probably a silly idea, but I'm going to do a WhatsApp for the day. It's going to be in-house lawyers only. It means that it's a nice safe space where nobody's going to try and sell us e-discovery or, talk to us about something we're not interested in, and
Mhm.
a chance for us to get together. And that group had 40 people in it for the conference. It was amazing. We met up. There was never a moment when you were on your own that you can just send out a bat signal and a nice friendly face would be there in no time. Um, and now that group is about 280 in-house female lawyers who are supporting each other, being able to have that safe space to talk to each other. So it's sort of, rather than walking into that conference on your own and feeling lonely,
Yeah.
it's like your online brand can actually mean that you can walk in there and people be like, hey, you're Emma, you talk about LinkedIn and personal brand and communities, and oh, you used to work at the lawyer. Like, people almost know me now.
That's
So
so interesting.
yeah, it can really help from like the self, don't know, yeah, like that awkward moment.
100%. I love how you leveraged, you almost like it was preventative. Like you were like, I don't want to feel, like I don't know anyone at this
Mm,
conference. So I'm actually going to use my online presence and the connections that I either have, or there's some sort of connection in the sense that there's a mutual interest. You're both going to be attending this conference. Therefore, I can reach out on that premise and say, hi, I'm going to be there. Do you want to join this WhatsApp group? Do you want to meet up, etc.? And it's almost like you leveraged just the fact that you were going to this event plus your online brand. And you basically, like, there was like a synergy there that you used to reach out to people. And automatically there's that immediate like rapport essentially, but online, which is
yeah.
really interesting. Um, and so tell us a little bit about, because obviously I totally appreciate, and I love that this is what you're doing, the online brand. I think it's really important. I agree with that. What about in terms of that? That's really good for your professional, let's say, world. But now, what about in your personal world? Like, how can one's online brand help them in their personal lives? Even, what would you say?
I think there's an element of how you become more noticeable for whatever it is that you want to be noticed for. So
Hmm.
it's not necessarily always channeling your why towards the professional. You can think about what you want to get out of your personal life as well. I'm a rubbish millennial. I don't do Instagram. I don't do TikTok. I am 100% a LinkedIn nerd. And, I've come to terms with it. We tried we tried setting up Instagram. It was way too confusing, but you can use some of the tools that I talk about from LinkedIn, and they're totally transferable in terms of the way that we use them as recruiters, the way tell lawyers to use them, but any profession, but also any platform. It's just about thinking about the fundamentals. Why am I doing this? What do I want to get out of it? And who's going to help me do that? And it can literally be, so I'm thinking from a personal perspective, reaching out to people. Maybe you don't have a massive network. Maybe you move to a new area, new country, um, and you don't necessarily have that support network. This is just a random example I'm thinking of on the spot. You can use your online brand to help build up relationships. Maybe try and join, a book club, or see what events are happening, and using Facebook to see what events are happening and going along,
Mm,
seeing if you can set up a community of people to be like, hey, I've just moved to the Windsor area. I am 35. I don't know many people here. Just wondering, I was thinking about setting up an expats drinks at the Duke of Connaught in Windsor
yeah.
next Friday at 6 o'clock. And you might have one person turn up and you might have 20 people turn up, but you
Hmm.
could still utilize these methods to sort of put yourself out there in a much sort of safer space. I think online is safer if you're a nervous person or you feel anxious or embarrassed. Like, if nobody responds to your messages online, you just go, oh, bummer, it was a good idea. Like, everyone else is missing out. Whereas if you stand up in the pub and go, hey, I'm Emma, I'm new here. Anyone else new here want to have a drink with me on Friday? that takes a lot of cojones.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's sort of like trying to work out. You might also just have a new interest and you're trying to broaden your horizons. You want to know more people who maybe you want to go into coaching or training, and you can utilize your brand to connect your online brand and network to connect with relevant people in that sector or with similar interests, and be able to again explore some of these without necessarily having to completely say, I'm stopping what I'm doing here now and I'm going to pivot and I'm going to go down that lane. It's kind of like you can try before you buy and see, follow different people with different opinions and get a real diversity of thought that might help you, yeah, professionally or personally.
I love that. That's such great advice. Because I think this idea of using your social, your online brand, or I guess networking in an online space in order to find like-minded people is that's such a great way in terms of your personal, especially if you're looking to build community, looking to create initiatives in your, in your area, if you're new to a certain a location. So I agree 100%. And I also think that, like, think about it the other way around. Like, if you're on one of these like meetup groups or someone, and someone says, hey, I'm new here, and then they reach out to you, I would feel so much more comfortable if they had an online presence.
Mm,
Whereas if they did not have an online presence, I'd be like, are you a sketchball? Like, I don't know who you are you,
that's very
so
true.
I
It's a
feel
really
like
valid point.
yeah, it's like a mutual sort of like we're both legit people, you know? Um, on that, you mentioned this idea, which really prompted this question, because you said, like, if you reach out to someone and they don't answer you or say no, I think a lot of people are really scared of that rejection. Um,
Mm,
and that is obviously in person, like you mentioned, but also online, because there are people who, I mean, far and lesser, like fewer people on LinkedIn, I would say. But definitely there is cyberbullying. There
mm.
are weirdos that are online. What would you say to someone who is like, yeah, do you know what? I would love to build my online presence, my brand, but I'm just scared. I'm scared of either like putting myself out there. I'm scared of getting rejected. What would you advise them?
Mm. I think this is more from a LinkedIn perspective because I think it is probably a bit nicer than you hear about all these horrible bullies and trolls and people who just out to be really nasty, and you still do see it on LinkedIn. There are some people out there, and the number one rule is always don't engage with them. But it is scary and it's not a nice feeling, and especially if you're feeling a bit nervous anyway. It's about, I think, as long as you are going into this with a why am I doing this, and it has a tangible reason and it's something that you're passionate about, or something that you think that's going to help me find fulfillment, that's going to help me find joy, that's going to help me be a better person, or me to give back in a way that will make me feel good. As long as you're not just, don't network or build a brand for the sake of it. It needs to be focused, and it needs to be, because it needs to be authentic, right? There's no point doing a fake persona because it's all going to come out and it's going to be stressful. You don't want to engage in that. So it's about finding your comfort zone, and you can follow strict steps, but you can also follow them in a way that makes you feel comfortable. So, when we do our training with in-house lawyers and their teams, the one thing I say is like, this is the ratio that we use and it works for us and it's completely transferable to you. But if you want to start off with a lower ratio, if you just want to do a little bit here, just allocate 30 minutes a week where you think about this and you create that safe space. These are some of the things that you can think about. These are some of the things that you can do. And if you don't do it within that 30 minutes, it's fine, move on. And there's always next time. There's always the next session, whether that's once a week, every day, a couple of times a week. But I think it's finding out why you're doing this and what you want to be known for, and what you're looking to achieve out of it means that you have more confidence when you do it because it's authentic and it's, this is what I want to say. I want to shout from the rooftops about, you know, our new inclusion policies at work, or I want to shout from the rooftop about the importance of looking after employees when they come back from mat leave, and or you know what, I just want to support mothers. I'm a mum, I've got a baby, I don't know what I'm doing half the time. I want to find my safe space in my community. So it's about finding your safe space, whatever platform that is, and it could be multiple, and then having a real solid foundation of this is why I'm doing it, and this is what I want to get, and this is what I want to give.
Interesting. Okay, so and when you have people who have multiple interests and multiple passions and they want to share that, how do you advise them to still stay focused on, obviously, as much of a general why that is overarching all of those interests, but also essentially, you know, I guess maybe fine tuning it so that the message doesn't get lost and it doesn't get splintered into like five different things?
That's a really good question. I think sometimes I feel like that, where I'm like, oh, am I talking about this one day and that the other day and this the following day? Um, I think, as long as it's all something that you're interested in. So a lot of lawyers, for example, they will say to me, I want to be known as a really good quality in house lawyer, but I also am interested in being a trustee or a governor or getting a NED position. So they're kind of trying to tailor their brand that's going to appeal to two types of people. And it totally does. If you think about sort of the skills, and the thing is, if it's all coming from the same person, there will be a connection somewhere. And I suppose if you've got multiple things and you're going into several different streams,
Mm.
it's about sort of giving the brand and the network for each of those streams it's allocated time. So probably if you've got four things that you want to talk about, you're probably going to be quite active. So you could literally say, on Monday I talk about sustainability, on Tuesday I talk about inclusion, on Wednesday I talk about community, on Thursday I talk about brand, on Friday I show the world a little bit more about me and who I am as a person. So you could do it like that and sort of target your online strategy to be quite organized. Or you might say, you know what, this is my focus, this is what's important to me for the foreseeable future, I'm going to talk about this, and then that might change.
Yeah.
It might transition into something new, it might go into something completely different, and that's okay as well. um,
Mm.
but just keeping authentic, that's the number one rule.
Yeah, I love that. That's such great advice.
Thank you.
And another challenge that I was thinking of is, in terms of building an online brand, is sometimes we have this idea of like the importance of having a digital detox. And what is your, obviously, because you're a proponent, of having an online presence, you encourage that. But what do you think about digital detoxes, and like, do you try to incorporate them in even your own? Because it can be a lot. It can be a lot actively trying to build an online presence or brand. But then also I know we have listeners who are, working in the city, really long hours,
Mm.
transactional lawyers, bankers, whatever, doctors, teachers, moms, even business
Yeah.
people. And, they're like, I don't have time. I can barely do what I'm doing now. What do you think about that? The time management, but then also maybe this digital detox.
Yeah, time management, I think again, it goes back to what are you trying to do? There will be certain times where this online brand is going to be something that you will want to dedicate more time to. Usually, if it's around anything to do with jobs, if you're looking to hire because you're stressed and you need to find the right candidate, or if you're looking for your next role or a next opportunity, that's when you're going to become more active. So it's about finding your comfort zone and utilizing the downtime. Me and my colleague Martin, for example, our commute is overground National Rail. So we do a lot of what we do in the commute if you have a
Mm.
chance. So you can prep and look at content or posts, come up with ideas, you can send connection requests, you could follow people, you can look at companies, get ideas and do it from the tube. Obviously some people need that time. I think it's very important as well. If you use that time for your mental health and well-being to be able to separate life, then don't feel like you have to do it then. But it's sort of finding where it slots in and where you're comfortable with doing it. You could do it and be like, you know what, I don't take a 4-hour lunch break, and I probably should have a bit of a break and take half an hour, where you go, I'm going to eat a sandwich and I'm going to spend half an hour, and just saying just half an hour slots. Like, don't feel like you have to go from 0 to 1 million in a week. Just it's all about going at your own speed. And I think, from my perspective, yeah, I don't have a lot of like more of the more personal social medias. So I'm quite good at separating, but not 100% at all. So for example, I didn't have LinkedIn notifications on my phone, for example, because then in the evening I would get people messaging me or commenting or liking or connection requests. And that would just bring my mind back. And then obviously that's a professional environment. So that's bringing me back into my work day. So I didn't have those notifications. And I think that helps. Or for example, the LinkedIn example, now I do, but I have a work phone and I have a personal phone. And so that's different. So I can just put my work phone on silent and that's it, done. And then it's my own weakness. If I go, oh, I'm just going to end up on LinkedIn, which sometimes I do because as I said, I'm a nerd.
Yeah.
But I think, setting your boundaries and going, so for example, when we talk to our consultants, we're like literally put 30 minutes in your diary, either first thing in the morning or end of the day, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It's an hour and a half a week. That's all we ask from you in order to do that. And obviously it makes sense for them. They're recruitment consultants. Their whole job is about building networks, building brands, building expertise, being seen as a thought leader.
Mm-hmm.
But the tactics, as I said, are transferable. You just change whatever the why is, and you can take this and rinse and repeat it. But if you end up saying, I'm just going to do this on a Friday afternoon for 30 minutes every week, that's absolutely fine. So it's about, think about what you're looking to achieve, and then think about what time you have tangibly and realistically.
Mm-hmm.
And then just say, this is something I do on Wednesday mornings. And
Mm-hmm.
that's it.
Yeah.
And then don't feel bad. Don't feel pressurized about how fast or slow you're moving. If you start doing anything towards this, you're already ahead of the game. You're already doing better than you were before. So it doesn't matter if it's just a little step or you've taken 10 steps. Just go at your own pace and set those boundaries, allocate a bit of time. And sometimes you'll be like, this is more important to me at the moment. And you might do that 3 times a week. And then you'll be like, you know what? It's August. I'm just gonna leave this for a little while or just check in once a week. So it's up
Yeah.
to you, but it's
Yeah.
you
Oh, I
can
love that.
make it work.
Oh, fantastic. Well, that's great. Um, Now, okay, so you definitely convinced me about the importance of it all. And I'm sure many listeners are like, okay, I'm interested. So, Emma, tell us, how can we actually start to create our online brand? Is there a step by step, framework we can start using today?
Yes. So I'm taking this and nicking it from something that my boss and I have created at Heriot Brown for our consultants. But I think the quick summary points, it would be 4 steps. So step 1 is find your why. You need to know why you're doing this and what you want to get out of it. Number 2 is your profile optimization, thinking Ronsil all the way, exactly what it does on the tin. Number 3 is growing and engaging your network with a strategy that meets your why. Otherwise, it's just random. And number 4 is showing who you are and the value that you have via content. That's the scariest. The scariest step is the when you go from just sort of the more one-to-one and you're like, I'm going to go one to many and just put it all out there. But I think if you start with numbers 1, 2, and 3, it helps build your confidence and you can utilize it to actually go a lot further in terms of the way that you might engage offline and then up to the content bit.
Oh, yeah, this is so good. I like a 4-step process. That's really good. Can we now let's dive deep into each of these. So, the first one you said is find your why. So, how do we start finding the why to build an online presence and brand?
Yeah. So it's we start to see a lot of common themes, but essentially the conversations that I have with people one to one, it's very varied. So I'll give you some sort of common ones that I come across, and that might help spark some ideas. So obviously there's the recruitment angle. You might be looking at where your career is going, where you aspire to be, how are you going to get there. That's a really good why. You don't want to be waiting until you're disgruntled in a role to be thinking about what's coming next. You might be a hiring manager who isn't allowed to use agencies very often. You have an internal talent, maybe a quite specific role coming up. You could utilize this growing of your brand to sort of showcase to your ideal talent pool and candidate pool that you're the right person for them to work for, that will help in 6 months' time when you're looking to hire a position. You might be wanting to think about paying it forward. You might be thinking, I know a lot about this, and I have a lot of really great conversations on a one-to-one basis about this that seem to be met really, really fondly and kindly, and people are enjoying this. Like, maybe I should take this a one step to the next level in order to hopefully help more people. It could be, I mean, in-house lawyers. 14 years I've worked with in-house lawyers, and even this week I've already heard it's a lonely place. um, every single week I hear that. It can be daunting, and it doesn't matter if you're a lawyer or somebody else, or and this is personal or professional, but you might just feel a bit alone. And just the knowledge that what you're feeling, experiencing, worried about, facing, tackling isn't just on your plate. God, that's just makes you feel a whole lot better. um, you might want to, yeah, get a peer group together where you can sort of create that diversity of thought. Like, especially if you're in a big department in a big company, your voice could almost get lost within what the company is telling you to do. So knowing what's happening in your industry and other departments, people similar level, it might spark an idea to be like, wow, that's really cool. That's very innovative. Maybe we could think about that. Um, so whatever it might be, maybe you're just thinking, I've got all of this knowledge and I just want to talk about it. Or maybe it's because you desperately want to find the voices of the content that you feel will offer you that support. There's a number of different whys, and it's about sort of taking a step back and sort of thinking about what you want to achieve. And it might be, a mixture, and it might, as I say, you might go through waves where right now it's about thinking about hiring my team, but next year it's going to be tripping the focus towards my next career opportunity and how I'm going to do that, and what events I should be attending. Maybe you're looking to get more exposure in, the more traditional formats. Maybe you want to be a guest on a podcast. Maybe you want to speak at a conference. Maybe you're looking to be nominated for awards. A lot of people don't know this, but the way that conference producers, so people who do all the content for conferences, the way they work is very much like a recruiter. They go onto LinkedIn and they use keyword searches. To the point, this is actually a really good example. I was doing a virtual roundtable a few weeks ago, and it was with an in-house lawyer who 2 years ago found out she was dyslexic. So it was talking about dyslexia in the legal landscape and what we need to be doing. And we had like a good turnout, but I thought, oh, I want to invite a few more people. And so there's actually on LinkedIn a dyslexic thinking tag. So I did a search of counsel and dyslexic, and I got another 20 people to invite to that event. At one point, I did feel like a little bit like a stalker, because somebody replied being like, this is amazing, sign me up. P.S. How did you know I'm dyslexic? And I was like, sorry, guys, I'm a professional stalker. But, for example, um, being able to almost, your why might be something like that, like around neurodiversity and wanting to create a bit of community in a safe space and say, you know what, I'm a really great professional and I've got dyslexia, but if I can do it, so can you. So there's any number of things, and it's always good to talk to a friend about it. But write down like what's important to you, what do you want to be known for. That's a good question to ask. What do I want to be known for? What do I want to be remembered for? Where do I want to get to? What do I want to achieve? Who do I need by my side to get me there?
Oh, such good prompts. I love those questions. Okay, so that's great for step one.
Mm-hmm.
You've established your why. And now how about profile optimization?
Yeah.
How do we start? What is that? I mean, I think I know what it is, but I'd love for you to tell us what it is and how we achieve it.
Yeah, of course. So on LinkedIn, there's so many different parts of your LinkedIn profile, and I'm sure other social media is the same. There's a lot of little bits and pieces that you can customize that you might not even think about. My number one rule for your LinkedIn optimization is basically making it like Ronsil. It should do exactly what it says on the tin. You need to make it, the way you optimize your profile is that I go onto it and I go, right, you are this, that, and that. and I want to talk to you about this, and make it super clear. So there are a few like cute ways that you can up your profile. A lot of people go on social media on their phones as well. So there are a few things that are maybe less clear when you're on your phone, but you can customize your own banner, for example, at the top, and be able to make that really cute. Use something like Canva. They've got loads of really cute free templates or pro templates if you have a pro license. And
Mm-hmm.
again, you can just customize that, put in a bit of your branding or a bit more about you, and also your headline. Your headline, rather than saying I'm an in-house lawyer at Heriot Brown, say more about you and what you're looking to achieve. So again, it's just really easy. I think in 2024, especially, no matter what professional environment, any kind of, this works personally as well. I think if a name is recommended to you, the first thing you're going to do professionally is put it into LinkedIn. Personally, you'll put it into Insta probably. And just to check out the person, you want that profile to say straight away, I want to hang out with Nicole. She looks really cool. That's what you want. And there's a load of different sort of angles, and I'd be happy to sort of talk through a bit more about it with any of your listeners who are interested. But as well, make sure your photo on LinkedIn passes what we call the Starbucks test. If you go from building your network online to utilizing that and following on in the real world, you want to make sure that when somebody is stood outside of Starbucks being like, right, I'm meeting Nicole, let me just quickly go on her LinkedIn again and just double check exactly what she looks like. I would need to walk into Starbucks and say, that's Nicole. Hey, it's amazing to meet in real life. Make sure that it's just really easy. Like, it doesn't have to be, as well, it doesn't have to be an expensive headshot.
Mm.
Mine was taken in my back garden by my husband, who got really annoyed because I made him take like 10.
Yeah.
But find like a really good millennial or like a quality Gen Z with a
Mhm.
up-to-date iPhone.
Yeah.
You don't need a photographer for this. You can do some really nice shots, good lighting, just again, so that people will be able to recognize you. And it's cute now as well. Like, I do have people come up to me and be like, oh, I know you from LinkedIn. But
Wow.
that's only possible because I do actually need a new headshot. I say this
I need
uh,
one too. I need one too.
because I chopped my hair and I got new glasses. So you can tell it's me, but it is,
Yeah.
I feel like I shouldn't go around talking about the Starbucks thing when I've got different hair and glasses to my own profile picture, but you get the gist.
Yes.
And the last thing I would say is the about section on LinkedIn.
Mhm.
Experience is your CV. That's like, yeah, pack it with keywords about what you do, whatever profession it is. Fill that out. Your about is kind of like your bio, like your cover letter, but it can also be a chance for you to showcase what else you are outside of, in this instance, a lawyer. So,
Mm.
for example, I know a lovely lawyer. Weird career. She went from being in like a startup energy vibe to a massive bank in the city and then another massive bank in the city. And she's like, I kind of want to go back to sustainability is so important to me, but I'm not getting any traction from recruiters or
Mm.
hiring managers because they're like, oh, big bank, she must be a finance lawyer.
Right.
Cross. So it's like, just rewrite your narrative. It's not lying. You have that experience, but you also have that passion. Make it clear to that recruiter or that hiring manager or the network that you want to get into, or that exclusive event that is literally just for people who are actively involved in sustainability. Use that opportunity to pull that to the top and go, yeah, I can be a lawyer in a bank, but this is what I'm really good at. This is what I'm passionate about. This is what I want to learn about. You can use cool things like emojis and bullet points, space it out. Nobody likes big chunks of text. And maybe say something like, if you're really wanting to pay it forward and that's for it, maybe have a section like at the top, be like, ask me about personal branding, community for lawyers, your
Mm.
LinkedIn profile. That can be quite
Yeah.
cute. Or
Yeah.
say, I'm really interested to know more. I'm curious about AI and data analytics.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Just feel free, just have a play around with it, see what works. But always go back to like right when you go on that page and the first like few scrolls, does
Mhm.
my profile, if your profile is optimized, then the person looking at it for the first time goes, I know who you are. It's Ronsel. It's exactly what it does on the tin. If you
Mm,
go onto my LinkedIn profile, I have my banner and my headline, or if I look at your profile, you see Emma Bauer creating communities and building brands for in-house lawyers.
mm,
That's what I do.
yeah.
Does that interest you as a lawyer to connect with me? Hopefully, yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Amazing.
have a play around and see what you're comfortable with. Again, I
100%.
appreciate this is very LinkedIn focused, but I'm sure there's bits and pieces that, you
Oh,
can think
yeah.
about from the personal side of things as well.
Yeah, I feel like I've heard a very similar advice with regards to bios for Instagram as well. I feel like a lot of
Mm.
people, because Instagram is so personal, people tend to be like, I have seen this, like I have heard people like branding people, giving these like workshops and they say like, mom of, I don't know, angel and fur baby. And it's like, well, okay, that's nice. But like if you're actually using Instagram to like say that you're really good at marketing, that's not very helpful when someone who doesn't know you, they're like, "Oh, she's a mom. That's great. And she has a fur baby, so she likes dogs or cats or something." But like
Mm.
where's the marketing come in as well? So I have heard that very similar, very good advice. My question is, because I know you know LinkedIn very well.
Mhm.
Do hashtags work? And like should people use hashtags in their bios?
Hashtags, oh, they're a form of keyword. I don't really know, to be honest.
Mm,
I don't particularly use them. There is something called creative mode. And I do have that on LinkedIn. So you'll see on the top of my profile, I do have like I talk about in the hashtags. So it's something that I keep meaning to look into a bit more. I think,
mm,
if you're sort of starting out uh, and you're searching for information, then if you're just on the homepage and you put in hashtag um a legal community, then any post about legal community is going to come up. So it is
mm,
probably something that's still worthwhile doing. It's just
mm.
something that, again, I think it's a millennial trait that I just never quite kicked into my strategy. But it is
Yeah.
a good one in order to sort of collate and sort of bring you together with other like-minded content or profiles.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
again, have a play around and see what's really popular and you know, see what you're using on Insta
Mhm.
and stick that hashtag into LinkedIn and see if anything comes up. And you might find
Mm,
a load of content that's like, oh, LinkedIn
mm,
is actually a place that I can talk about this. Or
mhm,
you'll go, oh, bit of a dead space. But could I
mm.
change this? Could I be the pioneer of talking about this on LinkedIn?
Yeah,
So yeah, I think it's all about playing around with it
yeah,
and having a bit of fun, even though it's a professional network,
right.
still, a chance for you to show who you are and
Yeah.
everyone's just playing around.
Do you know what's funny is like I love emojis. Like I could probably just communicate with emojis. Like that is who I am. And so I feel like I've started doing it in the last like 3 to 6 months. And I love it. Like because everyone's like and everyone's like, oh, I can definitely tell like in the comments, especially if you're talking with, like, a lot of lawyers. It's a little bit different, right? It's different. But I'm the one who's like, heart, heart, heart. Great job. Congratulations. Kissy.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, no, but this is a way of expressing who I am. And that is really who I am. It feels almost fake not to ever use emojis. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah,
I think there's an element of also hopefully bringing authenticity to your profile optimization. And
yeah,
for some, that might be not using emojis, which is totally fine too. So
exactly. It's like,
yeah.
don't use it if it's not something that's comfortable for you. Like when I started at Heriot Brown, I was like, guys, by the way, I've got a really bad smiley situation. Like it's ingrained in my body. I send them on Teams, I put them on emails, I put them on text.
Yeah.
There's a lot of smiley face emojis. Like if it gets too much or annoying, just let me know. But I do the same on LinkedIn as well. And
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, because I'm smiling. Like this is fun. This is interesting.
Yeah.
And again, if you think about the way that you display content, it can break things up or add a
Yeah.
meaning in.
Yeah.
Rather than using a bullet point, why not use heart-shaped emojis?
Yeah. Exactly. I
Like,
love
because you
that.
love this, so why not show it?
Exactly.
And you can do that in your bio as well. You can
Yes.
do that in your, I have emojis that are like red color, like a red arrow when I work for the lawyer because the brand is red. And that's like my bullet
Ah,
point is a little red arrow
right.
because I like bringing the pop of color
Mm.
and a bit of personality. Um, but yeah, it's like trial and error. seeing what works, and seeing what you're comfortable with, and engaging with people in authentic ways. You can't beat that. Even if it's not their cup of tea, it's not their cup of tea. But no one
Yeah.
can bat an eyelid if that's just obviously who you are and how you interact with people. Like, then
100%.
that's fine. You're just different.
And I also feel like there's this element of you'll find your tribe as well. And maybe that's not something we fully discussed yet. But I feel like this idea of finding your tribe, some people will be off put by emojis, but I've
Mm.
accepted that that is not my tribe. Do you know what I'm saying? But the
Yeah.
people who will be like, oh my God, emojis, love emojis, those are the people who are going to be like, hey, I found my person. And I'm going to be like,
Yeah.
yeah, welcome, So I
For
definitely think that's
sure.
important.
And I think, as well, don't ever put everybody in the same bucket. I mean, a lot of
Mm.
people still very much like in my personal life, when I say, oh, I've worked with lawyers for 14 years, they're like, dude, I mean, you could have murdered somebody and be out by now. Like, why are you hanging out? This stigma behind like they're all these city boy working
Mm.
20 hours.
Mm.
I'm like, no. Like, yes, there are lawyers who are very traditional in the way
Mhm.
that they are, and that's fine. But there are also these kind of lawyers, and there are these kind of lawyers, and there are these kind of lawyers, and sort of putting like a whole profession into one bucket is
Yeah.
just it's just ridiculous. There's a reason why there's something called segmentation in marketing. There's a reason
Mm.
why marketers segment their data, because what's interesting for you. So for example, the lawyer, if we were emailing about the lawyer awards, we would send one version of an email, to 24 different sectors, and it would be slightly tweaked for each of those people. So if we were like emailing the managing partner about the awards, it will say message 1. If we're emailing general counsel, it's message 2. If we're emailing like legal counsel, it's message 3. If it's legal counsel and banking, it's message 5. If it's real estate, if it's profit, like whatever it is, this is how they do it. So just because maybe you haven't found your tribe yet, and something like your social media, maybe that's off put you before, that's why this sort of sparked, but just keep going and just make sure that you don't put that mask back on and feel like that's how you need to be or perceive, like portray yourself.
Mhm.
Being you is always 100%, and you'll find that tribe, like just like you said.
Yeah.
You may not have yet, but it will they're there somewhere. Everyone's got someone somewhere
Yeah.
that's useful.
Love that. Okay, now let's talk about step 3, which is starting to actually, let's say, interact and grow, the network and your online presence. So, how do people go about doing that?
Yeah. So once you sort of work out, I'll give you an example of something that we did recently. So back in March, my colleague Lucy Taylor and we had just an idea. It came from a natural interaction of two lawyers back from mat leave contacting us within 24 hours. And I was going, we should introduce them one to one. And we were like, wait, there's a one to many situation here. Put on a poll, we did a few posts, we gathered information, and we opened up a new community. So it's called the In-House Lawyers Parents Club. And it's a space for you to, as a very professional person, but have that tribe of people who also get the being a parent. And it is parents. We do have some boys in it as well, which is good. The boy population of the Parents Club is growing, which is great to see. But for example, I really wanted to grow my network of other in-house lawyers who are parents, because I was like, this is having such amazing feedback. I want to share it with as many people as possible. So I just started growing my network with people with who had keywords in their profiles of some kind of maternity, parental, paternity leave. If they had mentioned, posts recently, a lot of people, who are working parents, they'll post like their top tips. And I started to grow out my connections and my online network with these types of people so that I could engage with them now and let them know about what I thought was a really exciting community. And it is. We've now got, I think, 120 Parents Club members, which is
Wow.
amazing. We're doing, a series of different events to help support them. There's a WhatsApp as well, that's very active with people sharing their tips, advice, sorrows, woes. It's sort of a mixture type of channel. But what's really interesting is by growing and engaging with that profile of people,
Mm-hmm.
just this week alone in my home feed on LinkedIn, I've had 3 posts served to me with second degree connections, and it's about them returning from maternity leave. I've been able to reach out to
Interesting.
them. So it's growing with a strategy that meets your why and that you feel like you have something to ask or
Mm-hmm.
give, and then engaging with them, and that's going to help your algorithm. So at the moment that's working for me. Now I'm actually focused more on our community moving out into Amsterdam. I'm trying to grow. I did have a network in Amsterdam because I ran an event there about 14 years ago. They were old unloved connections on my online network, so sort of re-engaging with those people and then reconnecting with other people. And
Mm-hmm.
what I do is I think about who either I want to add value to or who can add value to me that's linked to my why. So another lawyer I spoke to recently, it was all about hiring an IP lawyer back end of this year. And he's like, oh, it's really tricky, like level of seniority. The market's not great. I know for a fact I'm not going to be able to use external agencies in 2024. Maybe if it doesn't work, 2025, but then I'm going to be left over Christmas with all of the work. What do I do? And I went, right. So what kind of level is it? He told me. I'm like, okay, IP. Which private practice law firms have the best IP associates? And he went, blah, 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 blah. Like, which companies from an in-house side of thing would you love to nick their IP lawyers from? And he went, boom, boom, boom. I was like, cool. So we set up LinkedIn searches and I just said, start connecting with them. Like literally, I asked this I did a women in BAT session a couple of weeks ago, and I yelled into the audience, and usually it doesn't work, but I just said, how long do you think it takes me to connect with 20 people on LinkedIn? Like, what do you think, Nicole?
I'm going to say an hour.
Takes me 2 minutes the day I set up the search and 1 minute every other time.
Wow.
So you set up your search and you're connecting with purpose. It's linked to your why. There's a reason why you're doing it. And you just
Right.
literally get the search and you've got 100 pages come up, right? So page 1, connect, connect, connect. Don't send a note, connect, don't send a note, connect, 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 connect. Then you land on page 3. So that's 2 pages, it's 20 connections. That URL is now customized for page 3. So I copy and paste it, stick it into a spreadsheet, a sticky note, a Word document. And then the next time I want to add 20 people, I put in that link. It's got my search saved. It's taken me to page 3, which is exactly where I left off. And I
Wow.
do it again. And that's
Wow.
1 minute, 20 connections. You can send up to 100, I think, a week that
Wow.
LinkedIn will allow you. So yeah,
Wow.
yeah. if if you think about it from sort of the traditional point of view, if I think, so last year Heriot Brown events that we arranged, so not the external ones that I went to where I met a load of other people, but we had, I think, 573 lawyers register for our events last year, which is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing networking opportunities. My LinkedIn content was viewed, what is it, like 860,000 times last year.
Wow.
So it's like one to one versus one to many. And a lot of the people who attended the events, you know, the relationship started with them seeing that content, with me engaging with their profile, with me asking them a question and saying, hey, how are you? I'd love to know more about what you're doing.
Mm.
I'm curious about what in-house lawyers want.
Mm-hmm.
What do they need? What do they want from a community? Don't worry, I'm not going to sell you anything. It's a safe space. And that's that's how big you could get it. And it depends whatever you're comfortable with. You might not want
Yeah.
to be sending that many, and that's okay. If you just say, hey, I'm going to send 20 a week at the beginning, that's still, potentially, let's say half of them say yes. That's, 40 new connections in your online network and brand in a month.
Wow. Wow.
That's better than going to a conference and praying that you might run into somebody. And
Yeah.
then you
Yeah.
use my tactic of the nervous networker. By the
Right.
time you're growing out your online brand and your online network and joining communities, when you're going to your next conference, you just whack it onto LinkedIn, you whack it into whatever community, Slack or WhatsApp you're in. Hey, who's going to Legal Geek this year? And that's when you walk into Legal Geek and you've got 3,000 attendees. You've got all of the legal tech providers in the world trying to sell you something, but you find your people and you take it from online to offline. And that's
Yeah.
what I love about this. It's how you use both and how one basically is just the foundations to make in person like a million times easier. So you can just walk into a room and feel confident. I know there are 10 other people that I know in this room. I don't know where they are just yet, but I know that they're here and that's
Yeah.
safe.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Very good. Okay. Emma, final step, content, creation of content. So like, I mean, for some, this is going to seem like very far away, but let's just say, everyone, we've done it. We've gotten to step 3, and this is very exciting because I know we can all do it. It's very easy the way you've laid it out too. It's very, very easy. We get to step 4, content creation. So I think this is where there's like so many people who say different things. And, we have Gary V, who I absolutely love him, love, love,
Mm.
love him. And he is like, you got to post like 10 LinkedIn posts a day. And you're like, that's unrealistic.
Gosh.
Love him. Maybe one day, but like that feels very ambitious. So, what are we doing in terms of content
Mm.
creation?
So if you look on like your LinkedIn stats, and I've actually recently made a video about how you can find all your LinkedIn stats. So if any of your listeners want that, it's really simple. But LinkedIn actually tells you itself on your stats page. It says viewers, profiles who post once a week get 4 times more profile views. And profile views is kickstarting that algorithm and making it work for you by you always looking at your target audience, whatever the why behind them being your target, and then them vice versa looking at you. The algorithm is just starting to make it really easy. So when I go on my home feed, rather than flicking through the same old people, I'm like in-house counsel, in-house counsel, in-house counsel, in-house counsel. It's just cleaned it all up because I'm consistent. The content stage, this is the bit where like people start getting a bit white faced and a bit nervous, and it is really scary because like you said, you're putting yourself out there. So again, you just need to feel confident. I would recommend trying to post once a week. We talk about 3 different types of content. We went through a really great with a management consultant to help us create what we do for our clients now. And the way that they described it to me, I think before I was very much like I loved posting, but I didn't necessarily have a strategy. And what they taught me was there are 3 different types of content. You got your valuable content, you got your credible content, and you got your entertaining content. And they all have a purpose. Now, in an ideal world, you would then hit one of these every single week. So you do your valuable on Monday, your credible on Wednesday, and your entertaining on Friday. But if you can just even do one a week, that's something. And if is it helpful if I sort of explain a bit more about
Yes,
what each of those are?
please. Yes, yes, yes.
So I was explaining this to my MD earlier about this was actually in reference to how you take one idea and you create multiple different types of content. So the example is next year we celebrate 10 years in business. Okay. So let's start with the entertaining. The entertaining post is here's a picture of Heriot Brown branding on a cake, all the team together. We got our clients together at this party. Everyone had a really good time. There were fireworks. Like, this is really cool. So that's your entertaining 10-year anniversary post. Your credible one would then be, let me tell you what we've achieved in 10 years. We've had X thousand people join our in-house legal community, the first in-house legal community that any recruitment company in the UK has ever done. We've had this number of people up to our events. We've made this number of placements. We've worked with this number of the FTSE 100. It's building your credibility. Here's what some of those clients had to say. And you could put that into one post where it lists it, and then you split it out in terms of, right, here's some events content, feedback and quotes from clients. Here's a hiring manager's quote. Here's a candidate we placed quote. Here's our career coach offering. So every candidate that we place in a permanent role at Heriot Brown, we offer 3 complimentary coaching sessions. So
Wow.
we have feedback from, Tammy's relationship with our clients as well. So that could be almost like 20 posts of different kind of feedback. It's all building the credibility of Heriot Brown. And then the valuable side of it is thinking, we did all of this. What were the lessons that we learned in each part of that step? And what can I share with other people in terms of, growing a team? We grew from Scott Brown to 15. I'll probably be about 20 by the time we actually have this scenario. What are the lessons that he learned along the way? How did we scale? Was it fast? Was it slow? What would be our advice to other people who are setting up their own business? That's valuable for other people, and that could be to other small business owners or people who are starting off like a side business, or it could be from our perspective as well, like a sole general counsel who's thinking about growing their team. There's that advice can be translatable. So you have one idea and you can split that into 3 different topics with 3 different angles. And actually with this, I've already got about 30 posts for an event that we haven't even started to arrange, because I think we're actually 2 years away from 10 years. But do you see what I
Yeah,
mean? It's
I
sort
love
of,
that.
you
That
can
is
have
so
one idea,
interesting.
and it's whatever it is that you want to showcase. So like ways that you, like all of the advice that your guests give you, you chop it up and you make it into really nice bite-sized, like obtainable pieces of shorter content as well.
Yeah.
And you can do that with anything, if you put your mind to it, utilizing things like Canva, emojis. You can do like carousels on LinkedIn. You can do little videos. You can use photographs of, you and your team or something you're doing. Like the thing I would recommend is to find sort of people who are doing posting actively. Like, even if you're not a lawyer, feel free to follow me and my boss, Scott Brown. We're quite regular posters, and it might give you a bit of an idea into terms of what we do, how we do it, what it looks like, and how it might be applicable for you as well. But again, it all just comes down to just making sure it's your authentic self,
Yeah.
that you're using your own voice, and it's your tone of voice that you're portraying.
Yeah.
You're welcome to use, Gen AI to generate ideas if you're stuck, thinking, you know, one of my consultants and I the other day used ChatGPT, and we're like, what are 10 questions in-house legal teams are thinking about?
Yes.
It's too much about, it was like it was something about like firing employees or something. So it's quite controversial, and obviously the different employee laws in the States as well, it's very different to here, where it's like, oh, you fired me, but I'm going to be here for the next 6 months.
Right. Yes. Yeah, I learned actually in France, it's like a year before people can
Yeah.
be, if they're making a redundancy role, like, yeah, a role redundant, you
Mm.
have like a year before you're actually made. Isn't that wild? It's
Yeah.
incredible. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, that's
Apparently in
digression.
Germany, German employment
Yeah.
law as well, it's like,
Yeah. Very
once
protective.
you're employed, like, it doesn't, like, even if you don't actually do the job you're employed for, it's very difficult to get rid of you.
Yeah.
um Luckily we would never have to worry about that.
Yeah, so no, that is really really incredible. And so you were able then from those the Gen AI outputs, you were able to basically source some that you were able to kind of tweak and use. Is that
You
right?
can tweak it, or it might just go, I don't really like the way that that's phrased, or it's not quite the right market
Mhm.
orientation, but
Mhm.
it's made me think, actually, that's what I want to write.
Mhm.
Or it might help you space something out. There's also something that's really good for content. It's called hemingwayapp.com.
Never heard of that.
If you put in like a load of text into it, it's going to tell you where bits are difficult to read and where you've used words that you like are redundant. So it just helps you space that out. As I said, nobody's going to stop scrolling for 3 thick paragraphs of content. You need to break it up, make it easy to read. You want to make sure that you have a really good, like, lead with something interesting or controversial or grabbing or topical, in terms of your headline, because you want people to be clicking see more. So you
Yeah.
need to You need to attract somebody with something that's quite grabbing, asking a question, putting in keywords of who you're targeting can really help there as well. So that when I'm like when a general counsel's scrolling, if I have general counsel in the headline, they're going to go, oh, that's for me. I'll stop.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And how do you balance like that sort of attention grabbing versus being like too kind of clickbaity, if you know what I mean?
That's good. That's a really good question. I think it's just about making it really obvious, especially if you have different interests or different. So, for example, me going from Parents Club focus one week to Amsterdam focus the next week, making it abundantly clear to those new connections and that new network, this one's for you guys, right? And there might be crossover, there'll be some Dutch lawyers who are also parents and are interested in that, but sort of saying, are you a parent who's also a lawyer, or calling all Dutch general counsels, we're coming
Yeah.
your way.
Right,
So
right, right.
just making it clear who it's for. Because
Right.
again, even if you have a really clear why and you're connecting with similar people, like my why is all about the in-house legal market, but what's interesting for you and what's interesting for somebody in insurance or somebody at a different level or a different practice area, they're going to scroll at different areas as well. So just trying to make it clear, this is for any of my followers who are interested in this,
Yeah.
but without saying those words.
Right, exactly. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Emma. I mean, honestly, this has been such a good deep dive into building an online presence, and I definitely know this is going to help some people. And I hope the people who were feeling a little bit more trepidatious or a little bit, you know, avoidant, if you will, I think this has hopefully helped them take the first steps. This is going to help them take the first steps. And I'm really excited to hear about how that goes. Now we're on to the final segment of the podcast, and this is the EnvisionAir questionnaire, which is a fun feature of the podcast where we get to ask guests, we ask them to reflect on their past, present, and future. And so, reflecting on your past, what advice would you give your 15-year-old self? If you could give any advice to 15-year-old Emma.
It gets better, and not everybody is mean.
Aw.
I think for example, right now I can probably tell I'm got a little bit pink. So I have something called rosacea,
Oh,
which
yeah.
means that I flush.
Hmm.
But when I was a teenager, I didn't know that. So a lot of people picked on me in terms of thinking that I was uncomfortable or embarrassed a lot of the
Right.
time. And
Okay.
I think in my older age, I think now I know what it is. I used to
Mm.
cover it with makeup, and now I've just gone back to, you know what, if I go red, it's fine. But it used to be something that used to make me very paranoid. And I think, we're all like that. Your 15-year-old self is never going to be your most
100%.
confident, but
No,
just like,
no.
you know what, it'll be okay. It'll be
Yeah.
okay. And like everyone's different. So
Yeah.
just don't try and change. Just be your authentic Emma, whatever it is, whatever color that is, and just go with it.
I think that's great advice. I think there's only been two guests who have actually ever said like, "Oh, my 15-year-old self was really cool." And I was like, "Wow, my 15-year-old self was not cool." And she was very lost in the world. So, yeah, good advice. Very good advice.
Thank you.
Um, reflecting on your present, if you could have dinner with anyone in the world tonight, who would it be?
Dave Grohl.
Oh, okay.
I think Dave Grohl is just an inspiration that if you are whenever I feel down and like whenever anything bad has happened to me or to people around me, I just think Dave Grohl, and I put on the first Foo Fighters album, and I think this guy just lost his best mate at
Mm.
27 years old. His band, who was going to take him all the way, is in tatters. And you know what Dave Grohl did? He wrote an album, he booked time in a studio, and he performed every single instrument and sang on that album, that first Foo Fighters album himself, bar I think one guitarist helped him on one song. And I just
Wow.
think that is inspiration. If you in your late 20s can go, this isn't the end. This is something that's hard, but I'm going to get through it. And I just think, yeah, whenever I feel a bit shitty, I put Foo Fighters on and I go, I'm going to be Dave Grohl.
And so if you were having dinner with him, what's a question you would ask him then?
Just ask him like, hey, like, how are you so cool? So once we get past the fan girl, because I just do love their music, I just ask him like, what was it like? Like, how did you deal with that? How did you move along? Like, how do you deal with being now such a huge star, but seem to be so down to earth?
Mhm.
You know, I think it would just be very interesting to hear his story. I think
Yeah.
that's my curiosity is all about individual people and their stories and the
Mhm.
lessons that they've learned. So I just want to know, like, how did it feel when it worked? Now looking back, like, can you even imagine that you managed to achieve that?
Yeah.
And what did you learn along the way? And how did you make sure it didn't change you into becoming, yeah, somebody who's not inspirational?
Yeah. Very cool. Awesome.
Mhm.
Aw. Okay. And then the final question, which is looking towards your future. What's one goal you'd like to achieve in the next couple of years?
I, that's a super cool question. Mm. There's a joke There's a joke that we actually stole from How I Met Your Mother, but that like future Emma is actually like totally in control of anything. So future Emma's totally got everything under control, and then future Emma and then past Emma becomes present Emma, and she looks back, she's like, past Emma is so lazy, she's not done anything right. So whenever you say future Emma, I was sort of having a little giggle. I would hope I would hope in the next couple of years, my aspiration is to take this to the next level. I've literally in the last 6 months been offered the opportunity by my company and my boss in order to do this myself, to build out. We've piloted this with a small number of lawyers in a FTSE 100. We've just done like presented it to an ERG. I want to see where this goes, and I want to try and help as many people as possible in terms of feeling comfortable and just showing them how easy this is. So I would hope, my aspiration is to make this really work and build it into the community that I've grown, and essentially help as many in-house lawyers as possible find the fulfillment that they're looking for, whether that's in
Mm,
the law or outside of it. And I'm hoping that some of the things that we're doing in 2 years' time, it'll be a little less disorganized and reactionary, and it's going to be, properly planned out and ready to go.
amazing. Very cool. Well, I can't wait to watch this. So, watch the space, Envisionaires. Um, if people want to connect with you, where is the best? Presumably LinkedIn, but is there
Like,
anywhere?
I do have an Instagram that I made when I was trying to hire a social media manager, but I don't remember the password, so I don't really
Okay.
go on to it. So LinkedIn, linkedin.com / Emma Bauer. Customize your URL. It's easier to share. Um,
Oh, very
you can do
good.
that as well when you're optimizing your profile. But I do share a lot of different types of, well, I'm going to start sharing a lot more tips on there as well. So hopefully it will resonate with your listeners as well. And then once they're following me, they're welcome to comment and ask questions or DM me on there. Always, again, I'm just a bit of a geek. So I love answering questions around this stuff.
Amazing. Oh, that's so good. Thank you so much, Emma, for being on the podcast today and just sharing so generously and giving us really good strategies to start implementing. So I'm definitely going to fine tune a little bit my profile as well based on what we talked about. So thank you.
Thank you
And
so much for having me. This was so much fun. You make your guests feel so like we're just having coffee and a drink, and it's just really fun. So thank
oh,
you.
thanks, Emma. That is so sweet. Thank you. It's always good to hear that. And again, you're always welcome to come on whenever you like. So we can talk more about branding and do more deep dives into profile optimization, I'm sure. um, thank you, listeners and visionaries. Thank you so much for listening and tuning in. And remember to stay curious, stay open, and keep envisioning your unlimited possibilities for your lives. Lots of love, Envisionaires. Thanks, everyone, for listening to the EnvisionAir Podcast. Make sure that you like and subscribe to this podcast so that you stay up to date on all of our new episodes.